بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ومولانا محمد الصادق الوعد الأمين وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته الغر الميامين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يقربنا منك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت يا حي يا قيوم تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا سهلا. O Allah, nothing is easy except that which you make easy. And if you wish, O the ever-living, the self-subsisting, you can make the difficult things easy. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وصل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I would like to start off by thanking Brother Muazzam and the Madinah Society of MMU for inviting me to speak to you today. I would like to thank yourselves for attending and making the effort to come here today and benefit, inshaAllah ta'ala. You all heard the title of the topic, and it's Preserving Our Imaan at University. So it's a good title because it allows me to speak about various things. But before I start, I want to actually introduce myself properly because we didn't have time with me being delayed by traffic and so forth. But I don't want to talk about myself too much. I'd rather tell you about my experience in education and university. I went to school, like yourselves, mashallah, and we enjoyed our time, right? We did this thing called, we used to call it wagging and skiving. You know those words? Right, so we did a lot of that, alhamdulillah. I used to go to a cafe around the corner of the school, take a few lessons off, you know. And it was one of the best times of your life, right? You've got to admit school is good because you don't actually go to school, you go and do the things at school, right? It was a good time. When I went to college, I scraped my GCSEs, alhamdulillah. I got C's, I got C's. I was predicted better, but alhamdulillah. And when I went to college, I found better company. These were like, you find a brother who's got a driving license, then he's got a car, so you can go more places as well. Go and play pool and the cinema, and go here and there. We actually went to, my friends were pretty good, they took me to Sherwood Forest. You know where Sherwood Forest is, right? Not Robin Hood, in Nottingham, right? We went there, we did bike riding, had a nice accident, I remember, bruising and everything. But we had a really good time, and I actually got A's and B's at college in my A-levels. And it wasn't because me, it's because of the company. These brothers really kept me, had a good bond. I'm still in contact with them today, although they left me at uni, and they went to Leicester, all of them, mashallah, yeah. And that's when I fell, because I had no support at university. When I went to university in Sheffield, I got into a good degree, alhamdulillah, I was doing well, but I had nobody to support me. I had nobody to go and really bond with and chill out with. And I met a few brothers, mashallah, I met a few people, but never really met anybody that was on the same level, as they say. And eventually I just had enough of university and I left for various reasons. And I started learning Arabic, I started working in a school. Eventually I went to Syria, and that's where I studied for several years, and I've come back a couple of years ago to the UK now and been giving talks and teaching across the UK, or the north of the UK. But the point I'm trying to make is, at college I had support. At college I had good friends. And not only did I preserve my Iman and felt good, but I actually did well at college. I did really well, more than my teachers expected. In my maths A-level, I did an extra exam in the year without any lectures. I just studied it myself, and I think I got 91%. Right? I'm not trying to boast. What I'm trying to say is, I was wanting to study so much and do so well because there was brothers supporting me. They were asking me about how's your exams going. You've got the extra exam because you didn't do it last year, right? I didn't do so well. How's it going on? Just because they were asking me, I was like, I'm doing all right, yeah, thanks for asking, and I'd go to the tutor and ask for help and so forth. But that's the environment that I was in, a lot of support there. So when you're at university, you need that support. I don't think you can go to the halls by yourself and you can do everything by yourself. You need to find a strong group to bond with. And I didn't get that at university, and I ended up leaving. I sold my books back to, what's that shop? Is it Waterstones? Yeah, I ended up selling my books back. Yeah, people do that, because they give you they don't give you much back for them, but they give you something, right? Better than just selling them at home. But that's what I did. So if you find some good company at university, if you find some good brothers or good sisters to be with, trust me, that not will only help your Iman, will help your studies, it will help you as a person, inshaAllah ta'ala. And when I went to study, I realized one major thing, and this is, I've realized the last 8 years, probably 10 years now. What's your intention when you want to study? Why did you go to school? Why did you go to college or sixth form? Why are you now at university? If Raz was there, would say, you know what, to get a degree and get a good job and make loads of money. Right? This is more or less our intention, right? Allah knows what's in your hearts, but this is the common intention or goal of somebody who's at university, right? They want a good job out of it. What do they want? They want to have a nice car at the end of it, right? So and eventually get married to a nice spouse. Yeah, this is all our goals, right? See, you're smiling now, mashallah. I mentioned that one. But this is our goal, yeah? This is what we think life is about. That's our intention. And I realized many years ago that that is not what our intention, primary intention should be. That's not our primary intention. Our primary intention is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our primary intention, the first thing we should intend by our education, is what we intend by any other act of worship, is to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, your degree will lead to a job where you will serve people. That was your intention. I did this to serve a section of humanity. Some people in my community will benefit from my skills, from my education, and alhamdulillah, you'll get paid for it. Alhamdulillah, you'll earn a living, you'll support yourself, have a family, etc. That's secondary. It's a good intention as well, it's not wrong. But if you miss out the primary intention, when you stand before Allah on the Day of Judgment, you won't have an easy answer, right? You'll be accountable. Just like somebody learns the deen, if his intention is to make himself famous, or people start kissing his hand and this, that, the other, then on the Day of Judgment, he will have the worst of punishments. There's a hadith narrated by Imam at-Tirmidhi rahimahullah ta'ala in his Jami'. Sayyidina Abu Hurairah narrates the hadith, and the narrators say that when Abu Hurairah would narrate this hadith, he would collapse, he would faint. He would faint whilst narrating this hadith. And the hadith is about the first people that will go to the fire of hell. The first people that will be thrown into the fire of hell. It says a scholar will be brought before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah will say, what did you do for my sake? And the person will reply, oh Allah, I learnt your deen, I studied your deen, and I taught others good. I taught others how to pray, to fast, and be good people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, no, you did it to become famous. You did it to become called a scholar, to become well known to the people. And that's been said, وَقَدْ قِيلَ, it's been done and said, take him to the fire and throw him in the fire. Then it says, a generous person will be brought forth. Somebody who's given a lot of charity, sadaqah. And he will be asked, what have you done for my sake? Allah will ask this person. And he will say, oh Allah, I gave in many ways to your deen. Help people with what you had given me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, no, you gave so that people would say, look how generous he is, look how charitable he is, look how good a person he is. And it's been said, take him to the fire and throw him into the fire. Then a mujahid will be brought, somebody who did jihad, who struggled in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he will be questioned, what did you do for my sake? Allah will question him. And he will say, oh Allah, I fought in your path, I struggled for your sake, for your deen, to raise the kalima la ilaha illallah. And Allah will say, no, you did your jihad, your struggle. So it would be said, look how courageous he is, look how brave he is. And it's been said, take him to the fire and throw him into the fire. Sayyidina Abu Hurairah would faint whilst narrating this hadith. It was too much for him because he knew how serious a hadith that was. The same applies to anything. On the Day of Judgment, we will be asked, what were you doing at university? What was your intention at university? And we will have to reply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we are not, or we don't have the right intention, then on that day you can't change your answer, you can't lie before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the first thing I want everybody to do is to make an intention right here, right now, because intention is in the heart. Nobody knows what you're intending. Allah a'lam, Allah knows best what's in our hearts. But we should all make an intention to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to serve His deen, to do good for humanity. This is part of being a Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ said, the most beloved of Allah's creation to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most beneficial of His creation to the rest of creation. So the more benefit you do to humanity, to not just Muslims, to all of humanity, the more beloved you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ represented, this mercy, rahmatul lil alameen. He was a mercy to the world. Nobody benefited the whole of creation, the whole universe, more than the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So whilst you're at university, you'll go through a lot of changes, right? One of the things that happened to me was, I grew a beard, right? And what has he done? He didn't get my permission to grow a beard, and how's he going to get married now? And who's going to ask for, this kind of thing, yeah? So that's what happens, right? It did happen, right? It happens commonly with certain families and stuff, right? But alhamdulillah, this is part of being a Muslim. Like growing a beard, having hairs on your chin is part of being a Muslim. Similarly, the sisters will be wearing hijab, right? Oh, don't get married to hijabi, she's too pious, go for a one that shows a bit of hair and stuff, right? It's very tempting to do that because people talk about it, but you have to be firm. You have to remember, you're not doing it for the sake of people, you're not doing it for your family, you're doing what you're doing as a Muslim, whether it's university or at home, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to remember that. One thing I remember from university is, and this is something you all have at the moment, and you shouldn't waste it, is I'm getting old now, right? But you guys have got a lot of energy. And that's what I had 10, 15 years ago, right? It took me all the way to Syria, and trust me, when I went to Syria, I got cold feet. What happened was, I went, a brother was there supposedly trying to help me, which he never did, mashallah. May Allah reward him for his intentions. And I was in Syria, I had to go to the passport office myself, I had to do everything myself, and after about a week, 10 days, I said, I'm missing family, I can't hack this anymore, I'm going back. So I went up to the brother, and it was a kind of a coincidence. He said, we've been waiting for you to tell us that you want to go back. Because we know people come, we've seen people come and go basically. They come, they can't hack it, and they go back. And I was like, I can't go back now. He just told me that, you'd be a failure if you go back. And, when I go back to the UK, I think about it, everybody say, he went to Syria, he's a big old hard, he's come back, what's happened? He didn't get anywhere. So I said, I can't go back now, I'm just going to stick to it. And I remember the worst thing was, right, and brothers will tell you this, ironing your clothes, right? That was the worst one. You had to iron your own clothes. I could actually cook when I went. I can cook and be, so, inshallah, that's not a problem. But the ironing, I hate it, right? And I'm sure most of the brothers don't iron their clothes. Yeah. But anyway, I stayed there, and I had lots of energy, and I realized, what? It takes a bit of courage. You can achieve anything in life, right? But it takes a bit of courage. People are scared. You know what the number one thing people are scared of? What's the number one on the list? I'm handing over to you. What do you think the number one thing? Give me any guesses. What's the most that people are scared of? The thing that people are scared of the most, right? What do you think?
What people will say.
What people will say, maybe that's related, but also on the list I read, so I can't say yes or no yet. Failing is part of it, yes? Say, snakes is on the list, right? You heard about that guy who got eaten by the lion, right? You guys hear about in India? Guys got eaten by a lion, honestly, I saw it on Facebook, not on the news. Right? But it's a true story. A guy got eaten, he fell into the lion's den, and a white tiger just took him and ate him, basically, right? But people are afraid of snakes, they're afraid of animals and stuff. The number one thing that people are afraid of, this is what I read, you can Google it if you want, is speaking in front of people. To speak up in front of people, right? When I came in here, Muazzam said to me, because I've done this before, but I'm so nervous. I just want to take a deep breath, and don't worry, you'll get used to it. When I started talking, you turn the lights up, right? It reminded me of something. I said to Shaykh Muhammad al-Yaqubi, and he told us once that he started giving khutbahs at the age of 14, standing in front of people, the whole congregation on Friday, which is thousands, and giving a khutbah at the age of 14. And if you've been to Syria or even Turkey and other places, you'll see that the minbar is not 3 steps, it's a massive minbar, right? It's a good 20 steps, and you're really high above people. So he said, from a young age, I was very confident, and my confidence was built to stand and give khutbahs. And they said I was in America once, and I went to a talk. And as I arrived, the lights were dimmed. It was quite dark, and I was thinking, what's going on here? Why is it so dark for here? So he said, I called one of the brothers over, and I said, why is it dark in here? For turn the lights on. I want to see the people here. And he said, oh, Shaykh, they do this because so that the speaker doesn't get scared of the audience, right? So because it's dark, you can just talk and people can listen, and there's no so. The Shaykh goes, no, who's scared of the audience? Just turn the lights on. I want to interact with my audience. I want to speak to them and look at them and talk to them and not have this fear. So when that happened, it reminded me of that incident. But going back to what we're talking about, you've got a lot of energy, right? And you're young, right? So you need to utilize the energy. You need to realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask you about the energy, right? How did you use your energy? It's one of the hadith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask you about your health and how you used it. About your wealth and how you used it. But also about your youth and how you used your youth. Right? I'm still a youth, inshallah, so I'll be questioned about that as well, right? They say up to the age of 40 you're still a youth, so we've got a few years to go. But you are the future of Islam, right? And you need to really think about what you're doing in university, so when you come out of university, you go and benefit the community. Because this is the biggest failure of Muslims today. They don't fail in education, they get good education. Right? Alhamdulillah, maybe you all get a good degree and be successful at university. But what do they go and use that for? How much benefit does it bring the Muslims? When we go into university, look at what the Muslims require, look at what the community needs, and then choose a field? Or do we just, this is what makes the most money, or this is an easy course, or my grades are going to get me to that course, I'm doing this course, and I'm going to convert in the second year to this. We're just going along with the flow. We really need to wake up and understand that we are the future of Islam, right? Next 10 years, when Muslims are in whatever situation they're in, we are the ones responsible. We can't look at anybody else. We will be the ones who are responsible. So you've got a serious thing, I'm trying to be very serious here, you've got a serious and very big responsibility on your shoulders as Muslims at university in the West. Right? You have a chance to learn something, to gain education, to benefit your fellow Muslims, your fellow human beings in this country, wherever you decide to work and do something. And whilst you're at university, and this is more the topic of what we're discussing today, I want to start off with that point. There's a lot of temptations. There's a lot of times where you'll be in situations where you're tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what you've got to remember. Right? You'll be in your societies, you'll be in your classes, in your lectures, in gatherings, where there's a nice girl sitting across the table. Right? Or there's a nice boy sitting across the table. Right? And you want to look, and it pleases you to look. But you should remember that Allah is watching you. This is the main point. If you remember that Allah is watching you, you'll keep your gaze lowered. Right? When you go out, and in the mirror, how long do you spend, half an hour, 45 minutes, dressing yourself up? What is it for? So that people can look at you, right? They look at me and they think, look at his beard and the lines in his beard, look at her hijab, look at the makeup, look at this. Is this what you at university? Is this why you have come to university, so that you can get married to somebody, right? And in the end, people get a bit carried away and they think, she's my wife, that's it, And then you walk around the corner and you see another one, she's my wife. Everyone, right? This is how it works, yeah? But every now and then, there is one that they think, she's the one, right? And then they're shy and stuff, right? You need to remember, there will be times where you have to work with each other. Islam doesn't say you've got to, that's it. There will be times in university you will be working with the opposite gender. But you need to remember Allah is watching you. You need to remember that if a man and a woman are alone together, then shaitan is the third amongst them. Right? So you shouldn't be alone together. Otherwise shaitan comes to you. And he whispers. And he incites you to do bad things. And this doesn't just apply to a room. Right? Today we've got, I mentioned it earlier, Facebook, right? We've got Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, I don't know other ones that are out there, right? But there's so many out there, WhatsApp and all this, right? When you're on WhatsApp with another person of the opposite gender, then shaitan is the third amongst you. Right, so think about that. Only texting her to find out what the date of the exam is, right? And then it turns into a full conversation about where you're from in Pakistan, or where you're from, this, that, the other. Yeah, I don't want to ask the Farishta now, yeah, you know, which way, where to go if we suddenly decide to take it further, right? This is how these things happen, right? Because shaitan is the third amongst you. So remember that. And remember that Allah is watching you. You know, if you just remember that one point throughout your university life, if I was to leave you with one thing today, this is what I would want you to take. That Allah is with you and watching you throughout your university life. Whatever you do, you can't escape from Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wherever you are, whoever you're with, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what you are doing, so be aware. And this we call in Arabic and in Islam, taqwa. Have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be aware that He is watching you. Be aware that He knows everything you do. And similarly for the sisters, there's a hadith which I came across which says that the Prophet ﷺ warned the women folk against being the ropes of shaitan. He said ﷺ that do not be, to the women folk, do not be the ropes, haba'il shaitan, do not be the ropes of shaitan by which he lures in the men. So when you go out of your home, what is your intention when you dress up and look nice? Are you becoming a helper of shaitan, one of the ropes of shaitan? This needs to be in your mind, right? Brothers have responsibility and sisters have a responsibility. And you'll be asked about your side, right? It's your duty as a brother to lower your gaze. So it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. You will be asked about your gaze. You can't say, oh, but she did this and that, you know. Tough. It was your duty to lower your gaze. Similarly, for the women folk, it's their duty to lower their gaze. We are all questionable for what we do. So remember that. And there's a nice story which I read and I want to share with you. It's about this very topic. It's about a young man and a young woman who are good people. This young man, like yourselves, pious young man, beard, good-hearted, he's out and he gives charity to a couple of poor people. And as he's giving charity, he sees a nice young lady, like ladies here, pious, young, beautiful, and wearing the hijab. And she's a nice, you can see her modesty and her chastity, so this pleases him. And it's one of those, you know, where could this lead to, right? So I'll go and approach her, but with a good intention, as we all say, right? With a good intention, I'm going to speak. So he goes over to her and he says, excuse me, my intention is good, I just want to speak to you for a moment. You know, just want to find out where you're from, that's it, you know. And she's, you know, shy and blushing, and she lowers her gaze, she doesn't look, and she says to him, I'm sorry, I'm taken by a believer, a pious believer who lowers his gaze. By a pious believer who lowers his gaze, because he must have looked at her to come across and talk to her, she realized. By a pious believer who lowers his gaze. I've not met him yet though, but he is decreed for me. I've not met him yet, but he's decreed for me, and I can't accept anybody else. So basically she shut him, you know, cut him off basically there and then. So he put his head down and he went away, and he felt bad because she kind of told him off indirectly. Right? He realized he's wrong. And from that day on, he became that, you know, lowering his gaze, not looking at other women, not wanting to do anything bad. He affected, those words had a strong effect on him. And a few years later, he thought to himself that even though he made a mistake regarding this woman, he still has those feelings for her, and you know, he liked her, he saw the modesty and chastity in her. And he requested his parents to go and propose on his behalf. So they found out where she lived and they went to her house, and the parents of this young man proposed to the parents of this young lady. And they obviously consulted her and they talked, and she found out, you know, he thought, will she remember, will she not remember, but she didn't know who he was. And she accepted the proposal. She accepted to marry him. So they got married, and it's, you know, long story, right? Marriage. The first night, obviously he was nervous, she was nervous, and as you would be. Who's married in here? MashaAllah. Yeah, so you know what it's like on the first night, right? MashaAllah. And they were talking, so you talk first, right? Always talk first. Talk for a few hours, that's the best thing. And whilst they were talking, he said, "Do you remember me?" And she said, "Yes." She said, "I do remember you." And he said, "I didn't think you would, but if you do remember me, then why did you accept my proposal from the family? You know who I am then, right?" And she said, "When I saw you that day, those years ago, I saw you giving charity to two men. And I thought to myself, this is a person that can only bring good to his family and to the people he's around. So when I saw that from you, I realized you were a good person. So I was happy to now marry you because I know you look after me and our children, our family. And why should I not marry you?" And then she said, after they went quiet for a bit, and then she said, "Why did you propose to me? You knew that day that I said I've got somebody else, right? Why did you propose to me through your family?" And he said, "When you said those words all those years ago, that you have a husband already who's been decreed for you, who knows his gaze, but you've not met him yet," he said, "I wanted to be that person. So I went and became that person, and that's why I proposed to you. That's why I proposed to you." But the purpose of the story is, look at the chastity, the modesty, the Imaan in these people that there was. Right? This is some of what you're going to have to go through in university. Remember that Allah is watching you. Remember that your duty is to represent Islam. You know the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that every religion, every way has its innate character, this characteristic that's the root of everything. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, this innate character in Islam is modesty, is haya. And modesty is what you need to learn at university, because out there in university they teach you the opposite, right? They teach you how to go and club and to the pubs and to dance and to be silly and dress up, right? This is all part of university, and you know this, right? Islam is the opposite. You've got to stay away from that. You've got to really think that, do I want to be like that? That is disgusting, that's horrible. Right? That's lack of morality there. The people don't respect themselves to do those kind of things. Do I want to be a part of that? Think about that, because there's going to be, Halloween's coming up, and then bonfire night, and then this event and that event. And what happens? People go silly and crazy, and they lose their mind a bit, right? They don't keep their control of their senses, and they do something silly on that night, right? They do something silly with somebody else, maybe, right? You need to remember that Islam is the totally opposite of that. Islam has come to preserve your chastity, to preserve your honor and your modesty. So please be aware. There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in this regard as well, which I think is very appropriate to share. There was once a young man, a Sahabi, came to the Prophet ﷺ. This is narrated by Imam Bukhari in his Sahih. And he said, "O Messenger of Allah, give me permission to commit zina. O Messenger of Allah, give me permission to commit fornication." Imagine if you went to the Imam today and he said that. "Imam Sahib, give me ijazat to do this." Everybody start beating him up, right? This is a fasik in the masjid, get him out, This is a Sahabi, he came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he had this, like I said, he got energy, right? He had this in him, he wanted to release this energy. So he said, "O Messenger of Allah, give me permission to commit this act." And you know the Prophet ﷺ did, he put his hand in his heart. He said, "Come and sit down. Come and sit down with me." So the Prophet ﷺ sat him down. This was in the masjid in Madinah. The Prophet ﷺ sat him down and said to him, after talking to him and finding out his name, etc., and welcoming him, he said, "Oh son, would you like somebody to do this with your sister?" And he said, "No, O Messenger of Allah, I would not." And then he said, "Would you like somebody to do this with your mother?" And he said, "No, Messenger of Allah, I would not like that." And then he mentioned the aunt, and he said, "No, O Messenger of Allah." So then he said, "If you don't like that this be done with your mother or your sister or your aunt, then every Muslimah, every person that is out there is the daughter, is the sister of other respectable Muslims. They would not like this to be done to to their women folk as well. And he realized and he understood the lesson, and he said that when I came to the Prophet ﷺ, there was nothing that I wanted to do more in my heart than to commit that act. But when I left the Prophet ﷺ, there was nothing more hated to me, nothing more despised to me than that action. He was the best of teachers, alayhi salatu wasalam. You know, his character, his kindness, his rahmah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He could change people with just a smile, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Look at his, his character, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But this is who he was, and this is the teachings that he brought. And we need to remember that when we're at university. Each and every one of us represents, brothers and sisters, we represent the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Because you make a mistake, it's happened to me, and I always feel bad about it. It's not perfect. You make a mistake with your neighbor, with somebody at uni, somebody in your community. What do they say? These Muslims are like this, right? Is this the follower of, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? These are the followers of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's what they mean when they say, look at these Muslims, right? When you use a bad word, or when you drive badly, or you think you own the road, right? For Pakistanis here, they think they own the road, right? So when they drive, if somebody doesn't get out of their way, it's like, it's their fault. Yeah? There's no courtesy, unfortunately. But this is bad behavior, right? The people will look at you and think, well, what kind of behavior is this from these people, right? You wear the libas, you wear the clothes, and you have the beard, you have the hijab, and then, and I've seen it from sisters as well, don't be surprised, unfortunately. When people get in the car, they get into this different mode almost, right? And they forget about basic courtesy and this, that, the other. They think they own the road basically, right? It's called road rage, I know. But it's something we need to learn, because when you do, let's give you one example. When you do that, you're giving a bad image of Muslims, a bad image of Islam. We don't need any more, because look at the media and what they're doing, right? We don't need any more bad rep, right? We need something good to be said about Islam, right? Anybody doing media studies or anything related to that? Because on your shoulders, if you ask anybody here, anybody, on their shoulders a big responsibility, because we need more people in the media to deal with what's going on, right? All these stories and all these things that are going on, and people are going to approach you about it, right? Because don't think people don't know. If somebody walks past you, trust me, in their minds are 101 things. Amongst them is what's going on in the media, and we said about the Muslims in Iraq and in Syria, and what's going on here, and what's going on there, and these fights and wars. They've got all this, a lot of it's indoctrination and brainwashing they've got in their heads, but they've got that. Why is it there for? Because the media is there, and the media is against Islam. What have we done to counteract that? How many of us go to university with the intention of studying and learning about media, and propaganda and all these things, and then benefiting Islam through this, right? How many bodies have been set up to deal with this kind of thing? I was told of one a while ago, but never really seen any serious work out there in this regard. Nobody's really taken this forward. And that's the time we are living in. In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the media was, what was the media? Poetry. The media was poetry. One line of poetry could make somebody a king. One line of poetry could destroy a whole tribe. That's how serious poetry was, once it got out. There was once a man, and a famous poet came to his house, and he had 10 daughters, and he wasn't able to marry them, right? So what he did was, when this man came, this famous poet, he didn't have much to give. He was a poor person, not well known, couldn't marry his daughters off. He sacrificed his own horse. He had nothing else but his own horse. So he sacrificed his own horse and fed it to the poet. And the poet found out, I visited him, and he sacrificed his only horse. He had nothing else, nothing. And he said some lines of poetry in praise of this man. Within a year, all his 10 daughters were married. Just that, few lines of poetry praising this man. Everybody thought, who's this guy? MashaAllah, he must be a great person. He's been praised by this poet. And they started to ask for the hand in marriage of his daughters. And all 10 were married within a year. So this was the power of poetry. Today, it's media, right? It's social media, it's the news, it's TV, it's internet, wherever you are. These places influence people, misguide people, brainwash people. Right? We need to be aware, we need to understand. You need to be careful when you go on the internet, right? be careful when you go on these things, what you're reading, who you're reading, how authentic is it. Like sometimes when you see on Facebook all the time, these silly stories get thrown out of their real, right? What was the one about the Kaaba? They want to show the Kaaba or something, and they'll rebuild it or something. I can't remember what it was, right? But it's not a real story, right? It's just there to create a bit of hype and keep the Muslims busy and away from good things, right? Instead of trying to be productive, let them be angry and make a fuss about something and just waste their time, right? This is what it's all about. Waste their time, keep them arguing and debating and the moon wars or the Eid wars, right? Is it Saturday? Is it Sunday? I just from Pakistan this morning. You know it's in Pakistan? It's Monday, right? So it's Saturday over there, some Sunday, and in Pakistan, Monday. And I've been told some of these little groups in Pakistan that are doing it on Saturday. So in Pakistan, they're doing it on Saturday and Monday. Right? These are crazy people, all right? What's going on? So this is they want to keep us busy in this way, right? They've divided the ummah into countries and groups and this and that, and they're happy, keep them like that, keep them going and keep them busy, right? Instead, we can't unite, and unity is strength. Wallahi, when you come together as brothers in the Madinah society and you need to support them, you'll see a lot of changes. We need to support them with a bit of, seriousness. Not just come and attend or just come and. You need to come together and support each other. When you come together and support each other, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put barakah into your work. So when you're at university, you need to support each other. Wallahi, towards the end of time, there's a lot of things that are going to go. I'm not going to talk about the end of times, but there's an incident where an army of the Muslims, and it says they'll take help from the army of the non-Muslims, and they will defeat another group of Muslims. So there are Muslims fighting against Muslims, which we see. One of them will take help from non-Muslims, and they'll defeat the other group of Muslims. And this will be between Syria and Turkey, in that land, in Syria now today. This is what it mentions, in central Syria. And when they win, that group, the Muslims are victorious, will be requested by the non-Muslims, kuffar, Romans, to hand over the war booty, the spoils of war, and the prisoners, and this, that, the other. And they will say, no, we can't do that. They're our fellow Muslims and brothers and sisters. When we're fighting against them, between Muslims, there's no spoils of war. That's ruling. So we can't hand anything over to you. They say, no, we fought for that, but they want gold or they want the oil or whatever, right? We want the resources, we want the spoils of war, we want control. And this group of Muslims will say no. When they say no, they will have to fight the kuffar. Okay? It will be a fight between the Muslims now and the kuffar. And after the first battle between them, it says they'll split into three groups. It'll be quite a drastic battle, the first encounter. They'll be in three groups. One group will be martyred. And it says in the hadith, they'll be the best of martyrs. Right? It says in some relations, 70 times the reward of the martyrs of Badr. It doesn't make them greater than them, it just means the reward, in terms of the reward is greater. But the martyrs of Badr are obviously greatest. And then it says, a third of them will flee. A third of them will go, that's it, they've gone, wherever they've gone. And a third of them will remain. Okay? And then it says in the hadith that they will say to each other, by Allah, we will never be victorious until we unite. We will never be victorious until we unite, and they will come together and unite, and Allah will give them victory. Allah will give these people victory, who want to come together for His sake, who want to work together to support and to work for the deen of Islam. They're the ones that are going to be given success. Not the ones that are fighting over things and trying to cause destruction and all the schism and all these kind of things within the Muslims. These are the shaitans. These are people who have no Imaan. Who knows where the outcome will be? It's one of the worst sins. One of the scholars, you might come across this, right? He was like a leading scholar, well known, and he was in charge of a group as well, a Mishma group. And they were praying, and when you're young and you've got a lot of zeal, people pray in different ways. Yeah. So some raise their hands, some don't raise their hands, and some do this, some do that, placing of hands. There's a difference of opinion and all this, right? So they had an argument basically, who's going to lead the prayer, which way we're going to pray, and this, that, the other. This is what happened. So he said, look what he said. He said, praying is an obligation, and where you place your hands, where you place, whether you raise your hands or not is a sunnah, is a difference of opinion, but the unity of Muslims is an obligation as well. The unity of Muslims is more important. I don't care how you guys want to pray, Allah. Let's unite and pray. Forget about how you pray, let's just unite and pray. Because this unity is haram. Breaking the ummah up is haram. Uniting is our duty. So why do things that will cause the Muslims to split up? That will cause the Muslims to hate each other and find fault with each other. Right? He prays that way, he prays this way. You know what? Look at the hadith, you'll find that the Prophet ﷺ prayed in various ways. Which one do you pray in? You know, whatever understanding you've taken and you've grown up with and you've studied, and you might change your ways, etc. Kind of brothers change from raising their hands to not raising their hands, and the other way around, they don't raise their hands, and raise their hands. Choose what you want, but you know what? Don't cause disunity between Muslims. When you're at uni, there's different people, different backgrounds, different, Muslims, non-Muslims. Don't cause disunity amongst yourselves, because it's only a weakness. It's only more punishment for you as Muslims, right? So one of the things that university you need to be aware of is going to be differences of opinion. Wallahi, it's the nature of human beings to differ. But don't make a fight out of it. Don't make it into something that weakens you as Muslims at university. Because already enough out there against us, right? We don't need to add more to it ourselves. So this is one of my major pieces of advice, that please remember to unite and not disagree with each other. We're coming up to the month of, we're already in the month of Dhul Hijjah now, according to everyone. It's Dhul Hijjah, right? Dhul Hijjah is the month where the Hajj is performed. It's one of the months of Hajj. And it's very important you remember the following things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالْفَجْرِ وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ, by the dawn and by the 10 nights. By the Fajr, the dawn, and by the 10 nights. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says al-Qasam. And there's not many oaths in the Quran about times. There's a few oaths that refer to a time. Laylatul Qadr is mentioned. There's an oath by Wal-Asr. But the Fajr is a time where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the dawn is a time that Allah swears by. It's a powerful time. Al-Qasam oath means that this is a serious thing. It's something that has got a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look into it. Reflect over the dawn. And what dawn is it referring to? The scholars say it's referring, some say to the dawn of Arafah on the 9th, some say the day of Eid 10th, but it refers to the dawn of the month of the Hijjah. These first 9 and 10 days of the Hijjah are the most blessed days. They're the best days throughout the whole year. Tomorrow, the day after, these are the best days. You can't get any better days than these days. You can only get better nights, which are the last 10 nights of Laylatul Qadr. But in terms of the daytime, the daylight hours, there is no better days than these 10 days which you have now been given the blessing to be in. They're the best days. The hadith says if you fast one of these days, it's like fasting the whole year. So in these next 8 days we've got left now, or 9 or 7 or whatever you follow, these days are like a year of fasting. If you perform the night prayer, any prayer at night, preferably in the middle of the night, but any prayer at night, is like praying tahajjud, the night prayer, on the night of power. That's the reward you get to pray tahajjud, the night prayer one of these nights. If you fast the 9th of the Hijjah, it's 2 years reward for the previous year and for the next year. You get 2 years reward of fasting. How many of us can fast 2 years? This is the reward of fasting that one day, the 9th of the Hijjah. This is the reward the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. Some of these is expiation for the previous year, expiation for the following year. So it helps you to forgive your sins. So we shouldn't lose out on the blessings. During the day in these blessed months, you should increase in the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The hadith mentions subhanallah, walhamdulillahi, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. These dhikr, you should mention this as much as possible. The Hajjaj, they've gone to, the people in Hajj, they've gone to Makkah, Madinah, they're on their way now. Many of your friends and family members will have gone, or they're going tomorrow or next day or two, right? Everybody's going now. What are they doing? They're putting on the ihram and doing the talbiyah. Allahumma labbaik, la sharika lak labbaik, yeah? One of the things we should do is the takbirat. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, wa lillahi alhamd. For us, we can't do the talbiyah because we're not going. Talbiyah means to reply to the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can't do that because we're not going to Hajj. What can we do? We can do the takbirat, to say Allahu Akbar as much as possible. The more you say, the more reward you attain. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar, the son of Sayyidina Umar and the great Sahabi, his voice would go because of saying this dhikr so much. He'd say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, so much that his voice would go. He wouldn't be able to say anymore. So don't be miserly and say, I've said it a few times. Make sure you use this time to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as you should know, and if you don't, in the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and some of the 13th, after every prayer, you have to do the takbirat. So you go to the masjid or you'll be praying at Jummah, what will happen? All of a sudden everybody will break out saying, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, lillahi alhamd. You might get a shock sometimes if you're not expecting it, yeah? Everybody just says it, yeah, then you join in. Right? This is, you have to do this, right? It's a duty for you, it's a wajib for you to do these takbirat. All the 9th, all the 10th, all the 11th, all the 12th, 5 prayers, after each prayer you say this. And on the 13th for Fajr, Dhuhr and Asr. So how many prayers in total? 4 times 5 is 20, plus 3 is 23. So no one's doing maths here, right? MashaAllah. The final thing I want to share with you before I finish is about learning. You're here at university and you're going to be learning, okay? Now, one of the things that I discovered was, to do with the beginning of what I mentioned today, is we don't actually know why we're learning, right? We don't actually know why we're learning. Right? What's the purpose of education? Why do you learn for, right? And they never teach you that at school. You don't actually know why you're learning for, right? You think the thing they sell to you in your mind is to make money. That's it. Knowledge equals money. That's what they sell to you. That's what they put in your minds. That's wrong. That's totally wrong. That's not what knowledge learning is for, right? It's not the case. What knowledge is for is to make you grow as a person, to make you understand life. I look back at my life now, in many parts, it's a blur to me. Honestly, it's a blur. You know why? Because now I understand things from learning, that I was walking through places and going to people and doing things, and I couldn't understand what was going on. It's a blur to me now because I didn't have knowledge of things. And this is what Imam Abdulaziz al-Tabbagh says. He gives an example. He says, knowledge is like a man who builds a house. He builds it from scratch. He gets the bricks, he gets the mortar, he gets the wood, he gets everything ready, and he starts building a house. Okay? He starts putting up the structure, the foundations, the walls, the windows, everything. And he builds a house after many years. You can imagine doing that by yourself. How long would it take to build a house? Right? After many years, 10, 20 years, he finally finishes this house with everything. He did it from scratch. Nobody helped him. He figured out everything, trial and error, the weights. He wasn't an engineer, he was an architect. He figured out everything for himself. He builds the house, and he perfects it. He doesn't settle for anything less than perfect. And once he's finished, he goes outside. He goes out. When you do something, you want to look at it, right? And when you get older, you wash your car, if that's, when I'm going to look at it. Yeah, you get used to that, don't worry. But he goes outside and he wants to look at his house. But not look at his house, he wants to look at what he's done, his achievement. Like you guys look back at university as your achievement, right? Look what these 4 years or 3 years. But any project in life. So he looks out at the house. He's standing at a distance, he's looking at his house. Okay? Along comes another man and stands next to him and looks at the same house. Okay, the Imam, who gives the example, Imam Abdulaziz al-Tabbagh, rahimahullah ta'ala, says, are they looking in the same way at the same house? Do you think they have the same emotions, feelings, understanding of that house? So, of course not. This person who devoted all his life, right, 20 years, 30 years, how long did it take him to build that house? How much did he have to go through to understand? When he looks at that house, it's an achievement. It's something that's got meaning. It's something that he knows every little nook and cranny of this house. Does that mean just a building? But the one who's looking, just come along, first time ever looking at this house, all he sees is walls, He sees bricks, he sees, you know, windows, a roof, a door. It's a house, any other house. Nothing special to him. Nothing doesn't mean much to him, right? It's just a house. This is the same for us. When you learn what you're learning about, when you look at it again, when you study it again, when you talk about it, when you think about it, how do you look at it? When you learn about the Quran and you pick it up for the first time, you don't know much about the Quran, right? So you pick it up, it's the book of Allah, good, you put it down. Over the past 5 years of your life, you know, the next 10 years of your life, when you pick the Quran up, how are you going to feel when you pick it up? Will you have acquired knowledge of the Quran and understanding of the book of Allah? So when you pick it up, you'll be like that man who's looking at that house, who's gone through all that experience. Learning is for that, to make you understand the reality of things. When you hear the name of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how do you feel? When you learn about him and you hear his name, how do you feel? You know, some of the early Salaf, the Salaf al-Salih, when they would hear the name of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they would faint. One Sayyidina Imam Malik said, I didn't take one of my teachers, until I saw his reaction to the name of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one of his teachers was Abu Ayyub as-Sikhtiyani. And he said, I will see him when the name of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is mentioned, his skin will go pale. And he would start shivering, and he would sit down in awe of the name of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But what did they know that we don't know? What did they have in their hearts? It was understanding, it was knowledge. Because knowledge is what allows you to do that. You know, when you see somebody speaking and crying because of something, it's because he understands. When you see a reaction from somebody, it's because of the knowledge within them. That's what helps you grow as a person. So your knowledge, which you're taking out at university, should help you grow as a person. It should help you to understand something in life. That's the purpose of seeking knowledge. It's not just to get a job and make money and that's it. That's not the purpose of knowledge, right? That's a secondary issue, like I said. It's not wrong. It's a secondary aspect which comes along. However much you get, you should be happy with. Allah's decreed it for you. Don't worry about that. Allah never asked you to worry about that. Allah asked you to worry about the first thing. To learn to make yourself better. To learn to worship Him. The second thing He actually guaranteed for you. Right? وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ وَمَا تُوعَدُونَ. In the heavens is your sustenance and what you've been promised. It's already there for you. None of you will pass away until you have completed your sustenance decreed for you. So Allah has not asked us to worry about our risk, right? That's not our main concern. It's going to come to us and we need to work for it, etc. But not worry about it. Not become anxious about it. What we need to be serious about and think about is our duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we're at university, when we're at home, when we're with our friends, with our colleagues, brothers and sisters, wherever you are, you need to remember your duty to Allah first. You've come to university, may Allah make it a success for you. May Allah give you success in your time here and allow you to become contributors, positive contributors to your families, to your communities, to society at large. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit you through the words I've said today. Hopefully you can take something for the rest of your year. Thank you for listening. Jazakumullah khairan. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. It was one of the best times of your life, right? You've got to admit school is good because you don't actually go to school, you go and do the things at school, right? It was a good time. When I went to college, I scraped my GCSEs, alhamdulillah. I got C's, I got C's. I was predicted better, but alhamdulillah. And when I went to college, I found better company. These were like, you find a brother who's got a driving license, then he's got a car, so you can go more places as well. Go and play pool and the cinema and go here and there. We actually went to, my friends were pretty good, they took me to Sherwood Forest. You know where Sherwood Forest is, right? Not Robin Hood, in Nottingham, right? We went there, we did bike riding, had a nice accident, I remember, bruising and everything. But we had a really good time, and I actually got A's and B's at college in my A-levels. And it wasn't because me, it's because of the company. These brothers really kept me, had a good bond. I'm still in contact with them today, although they left me at uni. And they went to Leicester, all of them, mashallah, yeah. And that's when I felt, because I had no support at university. When I went to university in Sheffield, I got into a good degree, alhamdulillah, I was doing well. But I had nobody to support me. I had nobody to go and really bond with and chill out with. And I met a few brothers, mashallah, I met a few people, but never really met anybody that was on the same level, as they say. And eventually I just had enough of university and I left for various reasons. and I started learning Arabic, I started working in a school. Eventually I went to Syria, and that's where I studied for several years, and I've come back a couple of years ago to the UK now, and been giving talks and teaching across the UK, or the north of the UK. But the point I'm trying to make is, at college I had support. At college I had good friends. And not only did I preserve my Imaan and felt good, but I actually did well at college. I did really well, more than my teachers expected. In my maths A-level I did an extra exam in the year without any lectures. I just studied it myself, and I'm famous. You did it to become called a scholar, to become well known to the people, and that's been said. وَقَدْ قِيلَ, it's been done and said, take him to the fire and throw him in the fire. Then it says, a generous person will be brought forth. Somebody who will give a lot of charity, sadaqah, and he will be asked, what have you done for my sake? Allah will ask this person. And he will say, oh Allah, I gave in many ways to your deen. Help people with what you had given me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, no, you gave so that people would say, look how generous he is, look how charitable he is, look how good a person he is. And it's been said, take him to the fire and throw him into the fire. Then a mujahid will be brought, somebody who did jihad, who struggled in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he will be questioned, what did you do for my sake? Allah will question him. And he will say, oh Allah, I fought in your path, I struggled for your sake, for your deen, to raise the kalima la ilaha illallah. And Allah will say, no, you did your jihad, your struggle. So it would be said, look how courageous he is, look how brave he is. And it's been said, take him to the fire and throw him into the fire. Sayyidina Abu Hurairah would faint whilst narrating this hadith. It was too much for him because he knew how serious a hadith that was. The same applies to anything. On the day of judgment, we will be asked, what were you doing at university? What was your intention at university? And we will have to reply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we are not, or we don't have the right intention, then on that day you can't change your answer, you can't lie before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the first thing I want everybody to do is to make an intention right here, right now, because intention is in the heart. Nobody knows what you're intending. Allah knows best what's in our hearts. But we should all make an intention to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to serve His deen, to do good for humanity. This is part of being a Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ said, the most beloved of Allah is about 91%. Right? I'm not trying to boast, what I'm trying to say is, I was wanting to study so much and do so well because there was brothers supporting me. They were asking me about, how's your exams going? You've got the extra exam because you didn't do it last year, right? I didn't do so well. How's it going on? Just because they were asking me, I was like, I'm doing all right, yeah, thanks for asking, and I'd go to the tutor and ask for help and so forth. But that's the environment that I was in, a lot of support there. So when you're at university, you need that support. I don't think you can go to the halls by yourself and you can do everything by yourself. You need to find a strong group to bond with. And I didn't get that at university, and I ended up leaving. I sold my books back to, what's that shop? Is it Waterstones? Yeah, I ended up selling my books back. Yeah, the people do that, because they give you they don't give you much back for them, but they give you something, right? Better than just having them at home. But that's what I did. So if you find some good company at university, if you find some good brothers or good sisters to be with, trust me, that not will only help your Iman, will help your studies, it will help you as a person, inshaAllah ta'ala. And when I went to study, I realized one major thing, and this is, I've realized the last 8 years, probably 10 years now. What's your intention when you want to study? Why did you go to school? Why did you go to college or sixth form? Why are you now at university? If Raz was there, would say, you know what, to get a degree and get a good job and make loads of money. This is more or less our intention, right? Allah knows what's in your hearts, but this is the common intention or goal of somebody who's at university, right? They want a good job out of it. What do they want? They want to have a nice car at the end of it, right? So, and eventually, get married to a nice spouse. Yeah, this is all our goals, right? See, you're smiling now, mashallah. I mentioned that one. But this is our goal, yeah? This is what we think life is about. That's our intention. And I realized many years ago that that is not what our intention, primary intention should be. That's not our primary intention. Our primary intention is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our primary intention, the first thing we should intend by our education, is what we intend by any other act of worship, is to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, your degree will lead to a job where you will serve people. That was your intention. I did this to serve a section of humanity. Some people in my community will benefit from my skills, from my education, and alhamdulillah, you'll get paid for it. Alhamdulillah, you'll earn a living, you'll support yourself, have a family, etc. That's secondary. It's a good intention as well, it's not wrong. But if you miss out the primary intention, when you stand before Allah on the Day of Judgment, you won't have an easy answer, right? You will be accountable. Just like somebody learns the deen, if his intention is to make himself famous, or people start kissing his hand and this, that, the other, then on the Day of Judgment, he will have the worst of punishments. There's a hadith narrated by Imam at-Tirmidhi rahimahullah ta'ala in his Jami'. Sayyidina Abu Hurairah narrates the hadith, and the narrators say that when Abu Hurairah would narrate this hadith, he would collapse, he would faint. He would faint whilst narrating this hadith. And the hadith is about the first people that will go to the fire of hell. The first people that will be thrown into the fire of hell. It says a scholar will be brought before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah will say, what did you do for my sake? And the person will reply, oh Allah, I learnt your deen, I studied your deen, and I taught others good. I taught others how to pray, to fast, and be good people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, no, you did it to become famous. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, afdal as-salati wa atammu at-taslim ala sayyidina wa maulana Muhammad as-Sadiq al-Wa'd al-Amin, wa ala alihi tayyibin at-tahirin wa sahabatihi al-ghurr al-mayamin, wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsan ila yawm ad-din. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يقربنا منك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت يا حي يا قيوم تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا سهلا. O Allah, nothing is easy except that which you make easy. And if you wish, O the ever-living, the self-subsisting, you can make the difficult things easy. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وصل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I would like to start off by thanking Brother Muazzam and the Madinah Society of MMU for inviting me to speak to you today. I would like to thank yourselves for attending and making the effort to come here today and benefit, inshaAllah ta'ala. You all heard the title of the topic, and it's preserving our Imaan at university. So it's a good title because it allows me to speak about various things. But before I start, I want to actually introduce myself properly because we didn't have time with me being delayed by traffic and so forth. But I don't want to talk about myself too much. I'd rather tell you about my experience in education and university. I went to school, like yourselves, mashallah, and we enjoyed our time, right? We did this thing called, we used to call it wagging and skiving. You know those words? Right, so we did a lot of that, alhamdulillah. We used to go to the cafe around the corner of the school, take a few lessons off,